Welcome, Wargamers, to the Eldritch Horror-plagued streets of Venice, because today we are talking about the Rashaar, the Lovecraftian cult analog seeking to tear the veil between worlds and allow their ancient masters to consume or enslave this corporeal realm. If you are a fan of, I believe it's Shadows over Innsmouth, the deep ones, this is a very similar kind of idea, but I really like the way that TT Combat takes this direction. And we're going to talk all about their origins, kind of how they fit into Venice, their power structure, that kind of stuff, as well as just kind of throw out there that there's a lot of videos worth of material within this faction, and we're going to jump into all of it. Now, one thing I'd like to add right up top here is if you like this video and you're interested in playing Carnevale or anything by TT Combat, please consider using the affiliate link in my description down below. Noble Knight Games is an awesome store here in the US, and if you use the code 2PlusTough at the end of checkout, you'll save 10% store-wide on all your purchases, and it throws a little tip in my tip jar, and that means everything to me. It goes to supporting me, my wife, our cats, the whole family, and I could not be more thankful. So, for those of you new to Carnevale, or the faction in general, the Rashaar are one of the major factions fighting for control within the streets of Venice, in service of truly ancient gods that make their home on the other side of the rift. That rift being the tear between our world and another that we mentioned in the core lore series, which you can find in the description down below. But when I say that they're in service of a power on the other side of the rift, that's not to say that they are unified. The Rashaar doesn't refer to a single cohesive organization, but rather more like a multi-headed hydra-like beast. And of course, because this is all meant to express like Lovecraftian horrors, they make prodigious use of words like unknowable and incomprehensible and madness-inducing. So to make this lore exploration easier on me, I'll just say that up front. But know that as we go through this thing, they're talking a lot about conflicting accounts, vagueness, and so on, because the actual flow of orders and information within the cult are so hard to understand. So rather than repeat myself with how unknowable everything is, let's just throw that up front, and we'll just assume that it kind of colors all the lore that we're going to be talking about. So what do we know about the most secretive organization in Venice? Well, the Rashaar predate the Great Rift opening over Italy, which is interesting. They've been here long before then, but it never had anywhere near as much power or sway. For millennia, creatures from the other side of the rift have tried to find like weak points between realms and kind of pass over. They would maybe corrupt local creatures and humans, and the idea was to corrupt enough of a region to be able to enact great rituals, theoretically hoping to tear open the doorway between realms and let the other side in. However, something always seemed to stop them, whether the society collapsed inward or they were the target of persecution and eradicated, whatever it was, something always seemed to shut down their plans historically. The Rashaar were actually globally on the decline when the rift opened up, leading me to think it wasn't necessarily their direct actions. Why the rift opened specifically is actually still a mystery, but the idea is that like the Rashaar have been trying to draw these ancient beings towards our realm. Something happened when the herald was slain that tore open the veil, but realistically, like the Rashaar have been here trying to do that for a very long time. And there's no reason to think that it was their success that directly correlated to the rift opening. But it did invigorate all of them immediately nonetheless. And so, realistically, that's how we get this classic cultist image, right? I talked about Shadows over Innsmouth, people who are mind-controlled or zealous, creatures that look weirdly half-man and half-fish sometimes, or just other weird combinations of creatures that shouldn't be. And there's a lot more than that going on. It's not just a cult front. A big one is that they give us a glimpse into what the other side is like. When you look at all the other factions, all they see is the weird kind of ethereal glow from the rift, and they know that like the world is changing in weird ways. People are going insane, like they understand it's a supernatural thing. But the Rashaar kind of become our number one source for what is actually on the other side. So as we said before, the Rashaar are led by a being of truly ancient power, an old one known as Dagon. And Dagon is a truly immortal creature who enacts plans that are eons in the making, set on a different dimension that we could never comprehend. But one set of those plans, it seems, is corruption of Earth, our realm, whatever you want to call it. And so from the other side of the rift, he bellows orders and sends his minions from his capital city of R'lyeh. And so he is infiltrating people through their dreams, sending out minions, of course mutating beasts and things like that as much as he can. There again seems to be something stopping him from direct influence over Venice, just like the rift didn't affect it, but that's kind of secondary. So Dagon's realm, the other side as we know it, is a place of madness. There's fleshy, mutated abominations, they surge and they teem in uncountable masses. The entire place is saturated with magical power. Again, remember our Herald guy who got slain in the very first lore video I talked about? He's the one who brought magic to our realm. But the other side is like pure that. And so everything is like writhing and twisting and reality is kind of in flux. And the rent in the sky is basically pouring that realm into ours, which is why we have such a massive increase in magic wielders and gifted as they're called. But his sheer will and presence is such that his voice sometimes whispers through the rift enough to drive people insane. Like you can just be hanging out in Venice, partying, you look up at the sky too long and all of a sudden you just go stark raving mad. And it's this world that the Rashaar, these devotees of Dagon, are trying to fully subsume into their deities. But how do they do that? I.e., like, those are all grand cosmic scale things, but how does the faction that you and I play participate in that? What is our motivation? As I said, this is a many-headed hydra, and so there's multiple sub-goals along that path, and sometimes they do conflict with one another. And they are often settled with blood. But as far as like their actual tasks, they could definitely be enacting rituals to increase the power of the rent or its size, because even though a permanent connection between these two worlds exists, it's not always big enough for Dagon. He can't just walk into Earth. So sometimes the power of the rift will, wax and wane. So I'm sure many rituals seek to empower the rift and open it further, almost like perforating reality at the north and south ends of this with rituals. That's at least the sense I get from the lore, that if there's rituals at the north and south end of this tear, the idea is we're trying to tear it even wider open. In addition to the ritualistic work or the grand goal of getting Dagon here, they're also trying to eliminate resistance. Now that more magic exists on Earth, the Rashaar are like supercharged. And parts of Dagon's plan seem to be toppling resistances around the globe, and this can look like a lot of different things. Infiltrating governments, sabotaging industries or politicians or engines of war or trade routes. So these are all very practical missions, right? Stealing weapons and arms, like all the things that you and I would probably do in a game. There's a lot of this, which I think the ultimate goal of that being they want to topple Venice. And it's pretty high on the list, I would imagine, but they're still in the early stages of that as the Rashaar are just now regaining power. Remember, the setting that you and I play in is like a year and a half, 2 years after the actual rift opens. So yeah, they got supercharged, but they're not like organized and like ready yet. But over everything, all the Rashaar know something kept Venice safe, and they need to know what it was. What could oppose the will of their master? So cultists of Dagon have flocked to the city, specifically a region known as San Canciano, to investigate, infiltrate, and corrupt Venice from within. So I want to have one little section here on the note of San Canciano. It is the home of the Church of Dagon. This is the holy, pious, front-facing side of the cult. Of course, they're not doing these rituals to eldritch gods out in the open. That's all on the down low. The front-facing side, what the government sees, what the average person sees, and what they know of the Rashaar, is the Church of Dagon. They present themselves as a benevolent religion that serves the ever-growing number of refugees that are flooding into Venice. People are coming in starving and tired. They're giving them homes and food and jobs and actually physically helping people. And they're not really picky about how they display their faith, meaning different preachers and zealots within the Church of Dagon will present Dagon in different ways. They'll present Dagon as part of a pantheon of gods. Another preacher might say, oh, this is just an older name for the Christian God, so we're not actually at odds with, this church down the road. And then some people are like, there is no God, and Dagon is just the friends we made along the way kind of a deal. Like, they can really kind of be vague about it and make it match whatever their audience is, but that means they can ensnare anyone. At a time when everybody wants answers and comfort, you have people who are telling you everything you want to hear. It's just a matter of you walking up to the right person. Each individual cult can have its own theology, meaning they can cast the widest net possible. And at the time, many didn't like the Vatican-led church because within the universes they saw this like whole thing as the result of sins by the Pope and stuff like that. Like, they thought the Catholics caused the rift, or at least the Catholic God didn't prevent it. And to be honest, the religious context of the Rashaar is the part that I'm really excited to jump into. The church requires its own video because the way that they've infiltrated the streets of Venice is really dubious. And I love all the cultist stuff that's happening down below, like in the secret alleys and stuff like that. I'm a sucker for it. But let's move into talking about why is this cool? Because this is my jam, right? Culty stuff, like, honestly, this faction could only be better if there was a Mothman model in it. I'm not even kidding. I love Lovecraftian horrors. Yes, absolutely. Religious commentary? Absolutely. I'll take 2 on Sunday. I'm here for every ounce of it. And there's so much more to talk about because this video maybe covers 1/4 of the lore that's in here. These guys did a great job. I think TT Combat did a really excellent job at describing the unknowable because I felt like this lore section gave us a lot of things to chew on as far as motivations and things like that. I don't mind if lore is conflicting or open-ended, but when you compare it to how other intellectual properties kind of cover similar things of shadiness and secrets and unknowable things, like, I do feel like I was given enough information to intelligently write background for the cult of Dagon just from reading this. I can think of multiple settings, multiple motivations, different ends of the good-bad spectrum in terms of how they're perceived. Like, I can do a lot of those things because I do have some information. Again, all of it is filtered with unknowable existential horror or whatever, but I feel like other game systems are like, why would this guy fight another guy? Secrets. And you're like, that's not an answer. You can't answer every question with secrets. I need to know something about this. And anything that has to do with like deep ones, I'm a sucker for. I love it. I am unabashedly a Cthulhu Mythos fanboy. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the Rashaar. Again, like I said, there's maybe 3 more videos within this faction's lore because the directions they take regarding Dagon, as well as the church's direction in the city of Venice itself, are all really cool, and I wanted to talk about them in detail. I was kind of debating between doing the rest of the, kind of intro faction videos and then going back and picking out details from the various factions, or should I just deep dive into the guild and Rashaar first and then go back and do the other ones? I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm open to anything. I need you guys to comment or use the affiliate link to let me know that you like this content, because it goes a long way to supporting me and letting me know I'm doing stuff that everybody likes. So thank you all so much for hanging out and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.